Hey everybody, this is Stan Wangland, and welcome to Just Thinking 2022. I believe this should be episode 16 or 17. It'll be posted on that. And I actually I did this podcast a couple days ago and then held it because, it was unbelievable to me on one hand and then on another. And it really has to do with Donald Trump, Tucker Carlson, Mike Pompeo, other Russian apologists and things like that we see on the news, and the effect it has on our country, on our administration, on the way that we operate as human beings. I've actually done in my other podcast, Just Thinking, when he's been under fire many times, I've defended Tucker Carlson's right, and I still do. He can say anything that he wants to say. Thank God, because we currently live in a democracy, although that may be short-lived in your lifetimes if you're a young person. Maybe even mine, and I'm not a young person. But, besides disagreeing with Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump and Mike Pompeo, I guess, the reason that I'm even doing this broadcast is to just get a voice in the universe along with other people, to get on the record as a human being and saying, what in the heck are you thinking? What is the matter with you? It's a legitimate question to say that, do you have to hate Vladimir Putin? Do you have to hate, President Ping? Do you have to hate Kim Jong-un or whatever? That's a legitimate question. You don't have to hate anybody. But the reasoning that these guys use is so crazy and so destructive, in my opinion, as an educated person. It's just a kid from Brooklyn. If I was a kid and, somebody would give you a line of bullshit like this, you'd say, what are you, crazy, man? What world do you live in? And I like to throw that out there for the couple of people who watch the broadcast at this point, as we move towards bigger platforms. But if one person, maybe thinks a little bit differently, or realigns themselves, not with being a Democrat or a Republican or anything, but being a healthy, normal human being that maybe has a moral compass and understands right from wrong. I wanted to play this clip. I think it'll pick up on the microphone. It should. And just listen to it for the 35 seconds.
Since it is getting pretty serious, what is this really about? Why do I hate Putin so much? Has Putin ever called me a racist? Has he threatened to get me fired for disagreeing with him? Has he shipped every middle-class job in my town to Russia? Did he manufacture a worldwide pandemic that wrecked my business and kept me indoors for 2 years? Is he teaching my children to embrace racial discrimination? Is he making fentanyl? Is he trying to snuff out Christianity? Does he eat dogs? These are fair questions, and the answer to all of them is no. Vladimir Putin didn't do any of that. It'd be worth asking yourself, since it is...
I hope that gets picked up on the, I hope this gets picked up on the video, and in all fairness. And when you see arguments like that, these are crazy kinds of arguments that people use. They're straw man arguments. They're arguments with circular reasoning. There's all kinds of labels for them that, lawyers try, other people try. This is right out of a playbook of disinformation. And to see Adam Kinzinger, for example, the former Republican who's now leaving the Republican Party, said that statements like this are not only erroneous, but they're dangerous to the country, and they are. And I would tell you that if you don't believe me, or you don't have any common sense when it comes to this, or you're so emotionally anti-democratic party, or Joe Biden or something like that, like people can be towards Trump, you just pretend that your life depended upon it. And listening to that reasoning, I would see this as a kid growing up in Brooklyn when, if you would talk to, I'll have to use Italian folks. If you talk to Italian people, and they were having like a thing on crime, And Italian, a lot of, I grew up in a very lower middle class, working collar neighborhood, so a lot of people identified with the mafia, with the mob and stuff like that, with criminals. They, oh yeah, they're just making a living and everything, because they were just lower blue collar people like I was and my family were. So, you know, not this was your ethnic background. You unless you had a business that was being leaned on, then you didn't think it was so damn funny. Unless you tried to, buy real estate, or you had a restaurant, you had to have silverware or tablecloths or things like that, or sanitation things, and the prices were 5 times higher. Yeah, you wouldn't use that type of a bullshit argument. You knew darn well why you didn't like people in the mafia or dishonest politicians or anybody that was doing those kinds of things. However, people used to use this crazy argument. Well, they do crime, but, and I've got to do this crazy accent that I was doing. He said, but you go in the neighborhoods, the men and women, the old men and women, they can walk on the street. Nobody bothers the kids. There's no drugs. There's no blacks there. There's no rioting. All this kind of crazy stuff, whatever it was at the period in time. Now I'm talking about the 50s and 60s. So, yeah. And I'm sure, black people didn't venture into the far Rockaways, man. To Italian neighborhoods, and they were just proud of that. Just to use an example of something, and they were, just make all these rationales how these people were wonderful, and that they weren't. They were terrible. They were racketeers on one hand, they were thugs on other. And if you don't believe that, you can see 1,000,001 true mobsters now, like Sammy the Bull Gravano and Michael Francese and all the other people. They're all on YouTube, on Vlad and Value Entertainment TV. They're marvelous. You could see these guys endlessly and listen to their crazy rationales for all the things that they did. If you're a history buff, you can look at all the disinformation and propaganda that was started by Germany in World War II. As a matter of fact, this is like right out of the playbook what Putin just did today. Pretend that there's people, there are Russian people that are being, injured in the Ukraine, and then the forces go in. These are just pretexts. Putin is a former head of the KGB. Now, when it comes to Tucker Carlson, he's got 2 other pals there with him. He's got Trump, of course, who's, if you think that this guy is a patriot, think again. But I'm not going to convince you of that. If you like him, you'll buy into all this stuff, no matter what he does. Mike Pompeo. I think Mike Pompeo is a former graduate of West Point. I think like Mike Flynn. Watch 7 Days in May by Rod Serling, the famous thing about the military attempted overthrow of the government. It was from the 60s when people were worried about that with anti-war stuff. Man. Just because you graduated West Point doesn't mean you can't be a loose cannon on one side or the other. You're supposed to be apolitical, number one. But this argument, starting with Tucker Carlson, did he ever make fentanyl? Did he ever do this? Did he ever affect you? Hey, how about the guys, the shooters that go and killed all those kids in schools? You think that's a pretty bad thing? I mean, your moral compass told you that's pretty wrong. Well, did they ever make any fentanyl? Did they ever send over jobs to wherever? Did they ever do all that hit list of ridiculous things? Of course not. Those things have nothing to do with a thug and a racketeer and a guy who kills political opponents, imprisons them, does all those kind of things. Come on, man. This is like saying John Gotti was a good guy. That's why I brought up the mafia thing. Yeah, he's a good guy. You could live in the neighborhood. You never hurt anybody. Come on, are you nuts? Are you crazy? Of course not. What about what if this was the Black Panthers or something or the Symbionese Liberation Army in the 70s? And they were coming in when the people who grabbed Patty Hearst and kidnapped her, and the FBI, everybody said, and big trials and everything else like that. Well, could I have gotten up there as the lawyer and said, for these people, have they hurt you? Have they done anything to you? Have they come into your neighborhood? No, they got this rich girl, her father has this right-wing newspaper and all that kind of stuff. Excuse me for the beep there. And all that stuff. It's a ridiculous argument. because any of those factors have nothing to do with anything. They were an urban kind of terrorist revolutionary group or whatever, and they were engaged in illegal activities. They robbed banks, they kidnapped people, whatever. Whatever your feelings were on that. Vladimir Putin is no innocent guy that, why do we hate? Nobody has to hate him. Well, what effect has he had on you? He's a genius, according to, what a move of genius, Donald Trump. What a move of genius, Pompeo. All that kind of crazy stuff. Yeah, well, it looks like it certainly backfired today a little bit. If you look at the people being interviewed in Russia, and I know you come up and say, "Oh, that's just the CIA people." No, they don't want that. Most of them don't want that either. Now their IRAs, your money, whatever they have, is all falling. How about your IRA if you have one? How did that take a nice dump today? Did Joe Biden create that or Vladimir Putin? Yeah, Joe Biden's stock market was going through the roof in a good way. Better than Donald Trump's. So yeah, it has a big effect. You just can't grab a sovereign country and say you're going to invade it under false pretenses, and then this silly ass gets up there and he says that stuff. And if you're listening to a president, a former president, who's a disgrace to the office, who do you think emboldened Putin to pull shit like this? Right up until, last year. When Biden got, going in and having a bromance with this guy, letting this guy do whatever he wants, ceding things to him, doing crazy things with Kim Jong-un, letting the prime minister from Turkey beat the piss out of our reporters over there. Giving a message to other racketeers and other strongmen, I'm on your side, man, Putin didn't do anything? Did he interfere with our election? Has he had cyber attacks on our, have they been conducting cyber warfare on our country? Absolutely. What do they call that when you assist people like that? Number one, it's biased, broadcasting. What's on your agenda, man? Putin had the power because he's a dictator. You can call him an autocrat. He's a dictator. He rules the roost over there. They go through sham elections. If he doesn't like the election results, what did Donald Trump try and do? He tried to do the same crap in America, and he almost succeeded. And we've got liars like this guy, Tucker Carlson, quislings and liars like Mike Pompeo and other people in whatever party, I don't care whatever party they just have no moral compass. I don't think the Ukraine is any wonderful place. From what I've seen, the corruption in Eastern Europe is long and hard. But those people appear to, to want to move in the direction of a democracy for their own good. My next door neighbor is from the Ukraine. And she's got family over there now. And they're holding their breath, dying. Ask yourself this question. If Putin is such a lovely, Winnie the Pooh, charming character, why is nobody beating the doors to move to Russia? Or to China? Who's beating the doors down to move there? Or Saudi Arabia, for that matter. Stuff like that. When you look at it, who's beating the doors down to go to those places? No one. Or people who have criminal backgrounds, people who have financial, misdeal, whatever. I don't know what the deal is with Tucker Carlson, he ratings, whatever. Mike Pompeo, he knows Trump is an old man. He's on the way out. If you don't get that, if you're a Trump supporter, come on. If he makes it to 2024, it'll be a miracle. And I know nobody ever thinks he's going to drop dead. He will, like everybody else. Who the hell wants that guy at 77 or 78 in there? He's crazy as a young guy. And he's full of, vindictiveness. Yes. All he wants to do is live in the past and get proven right. He makes up the same kind of crazy lies, just the same kind of crazy stuff as Putin. Only Putin's smarter. Is Putin a genius? No. Because this is really, he listen to the news. He had another, like Trump, with his rallies. This guy was in his bunker, had quite the press conference, kind of threatening, people with nuclear waste. And by the way, that horrible thing with Chernobyl? Look at the HBO series. Probably people don't even know what the hell I'm talking about or forget it already. Well, I guess, during the Russians' liberation of Ukraine, they blew up a storage plant for radioactive materials. And that stuff will be floating around now in the Ukraine, in Russia, and, the EU, the European Union countries. So what has Putin done? He hasn't made any fentanyl. He hasn't done it. Yeah, he's blown out your IRA. He's destabilized, all of Europe and Eastern Europe. He's destabilized economies. All that because he wants to do his thing. He wants to grab some land. He doesn't want NATO on his borders. And what's the result for this genius move, Mike Pompeo and Donald Trump? He's such a genius. Hey, Sweden and Finland, they'll be the next people in the NATO partnership. Hey, on my ancestry DNA, 58% Sweden, right here. The other part is from Finland and Norway, a little bit, 18% from Germany. You get it? I have actually relatives over there. As a matter of fact, my first cousin just came back from Norway. Just last week. Those people, yeah, they're fully aware of they're on Russia's border. And they don't trust it. People in Poland and everything else like that. It's a very destabilizing, unsettling thing. Poland happens to be a member of NATO. And let me tell you, Putin knows, in case you don't know it, there's no comparison between if when NATO forces unite. That's what he doesn't want, because there's no way conventionally he could take on NATO. His last resort is the threat of nuclear war or whatever. And who knows? Maybe it'll come to that. Who knows? But what did he ever do? Did he ever call you a racist? What kind of crazy, absurd reasoning? And I think the question we all have to ask is, I'm not giving you a political thing. I could care less who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. It's the best person for the job at that point in time. The person who's making the most sensible decisions. With all the bull crap stopping. These guys coming up and firing up the American people with ridiculous stuff. You have to pick and choose, and I have to pick and choose. If you want to have some type of marginally successful life, we have to start dealing and to try to make the most accurate perceptions on what's happening as possible. These are guys that stand there and make a fuss like this is supposed to be a dictatorship because I said that, in a pandemic, you have to wear a mask. There's a mask mandate. To put a friggin' mask over your face. To do this. And this is just a glove here. Or to put a little mask over your face. This is the big thing. But this guy can invade a sovereign nation. And it's nothing. It's nothing. Why would I hate him? Why would I be disappointed in him? Why would I think he did something wrong? My question to you, my question to anybody who believes that crap, whether it's from a Democrat, it's a Republican, or an independent, or somebody from the moon, what screw is loose in your head that you need to tighten up, man? Where is it? So that's it. Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, Mike Pompeo. History is loaded with people like you. In France, when the Germans invaded, they had Laval and Pétain. Former generals from World War I, they became collaborators. You had Quisling in the Scandinavian countries. Just terrible stuff. These guys are awful. And they're a danger to you and I and our thinking. Just like ultra-liberal agendas that twist things, that make, things out to be not the case. are bad. Putin is not a good guy. I'm not saying you have to hate him or anything else. Come on. He's not a good guy. He's not. Okay, that's Just Thinking for today. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.